Alex Alonso, hosted up with FG the General, here to bring you guys another banger. And man, we started a little bit late, but hey, better late than never, right, FG?
No doubt. This real life out here we live in, Alex. So, sometimes things happen, man. Get us a late start.
Yeah, man. I know you had some legitimate shit that's going on, man. That shit sounded crazy when we talked about it off camera. We ain't got to get into it, but man, that trucking business is it's dangerous.
No doubt, Alex. And when you're dealing with hazmat, like I do, man, it's all gravy till, something goes wrong, and then it get very dangerous. It's a lot of people that's in the trucking company won't even dare do what I do. You know what I mean? They stay away from it. Have done the research on it. Certain accidents and things don't happen as often as people think, but they do happen, bro. And, somebody don't take all the precautions,
Yeah, man, for sure. So, yeah, man, I got a couple topics here. I want to let the people know that we on Spotify, iHeart, Apple, Google. If you like listening to the show on the podcast, like most people do, tap in on any of those platforms. If you're tapping in with us on Apple, you can leave us a rating and review there. You can follow us on Spotify, and we're gonna try to get through a few topics today, man. Carlee Russell, aka Carlee Hussle, or
No doubt.
some people are saying Carlee Russell. We're going to talk about her admitting the her lie. We're going to talk briefly about the YNW Melly hung trial or mistrial, hung jury. It's a hung jury mistrial, means the same
Mistrial,
thing.
yeah.
There's this crazy indictment out here in LA and El Monte of some essays related to related but unrelated to something that happened a year ago. And then a piece of Tupac jewelry ends up selling and is considered the most expensive piece of hip hop art ever to be sold. But we'll start off with Carlee Russell. Carlee Russell, man, and we talked about this last week, and I was giving you the benefit of the doubt that hey, in Alabama, hey, anything can crack off in Alabama. But then I was still saying, it don't sound right. But I appreciate you giving her the benefit of the doubt because we should always give people the benefit of the doubt. But through a lawyer, she admitted the whole thing was a hoax, man.
Man, I couldn't believe that shit, man. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, Alice. I really thought, like I say, that last piece, I didn't get, the phone thing, but I just didn't believe it was a whole hoax. You know what I mean? I thought it was, I ain't gonna lie, I believed her. You know what I mean? Why would she lie? Why would she make something up like this? Then to come out and, through her lawyer and admit that it was a hoax, on the other side, I ain't coming out to admitting shit, so I'm still wondering why she even decided to even break down instead of just sticking to her story, but maybe, hey, it has so many holes in it, man. They told her just the gig is up, I don't know. Maybe her attorneys told her that it was best for her to, admit to it. But at the same time, Alice, when you admit to it, bro, now come a different set of circumstances. You know what I mean? They couldn't prove you was lying. Then some of these circumstances may not hit the street. That's what the part people don't understand when I say, why did she come out and tell the truth? You know what I mean? Because now she could be criminally charged for a few things.
Yeah, I wonder if her lawyer gave her bad advice or if it was just something that was inevitable. There was already onto your story, and there was pretty much nothing to admit. But I'm gonna say something that my dad used to tell me, man. My dad been telling me this since I was like 12 years old. Since I was about 12 years old, his number one rule was deny, deny, deny.
Deny. No
And
doubt.
I've been hearing that all my life, man. Deny, deny, deny.
Hey, and for people
Hey,
that, that,
is that really
what's up,
good
Alex?
advice though? I was gonna say, is that good advice? you know?
I mean, in a lot of situations, it is. You know what I mean? Because even in the one song, I don't even know the name of the song. But dude in there say when his girl called and he said it wasn't me. You know what I
Oh
mean? And
yeah.
he wasn't me the whole time. She like, I saw you. Hey, it wasn't me. But at the same time, Alex, sometimes that deny, and that wasn't me, man. Keep you, put you in a better situation. When after you done already made a mistake or things of that nature. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, all I'm saying is maybe if she would have kept denying in this situation, it may be a couple of charges that they might have couldn't have hit her with just based on they didn't have enough evidence to do so. She already made the mistake to make up the story, bro. She already messed up there. So at the end of the day, man, if you already didn't, like you say, you plotted and planned this, so you plotted and planned with criminal intent pretty much, because this is against the law to have all these agencies, exhausting all these efforts and things of that nature, so at the end of the day, man, she shouldn't have just said nothing, stuck to her story, and whatever they did with her, they did with her. But once you admit it, man, you open up a door to a whole lot of other circumstances.
Yeah, and that "it wasn't me" quote you just said from the song is a Shaggy song, but Shaggy stole that "it wasn't me" from somebody else though. That wasn't a
Oh, okay,
original.
okay.
You don't remember who Shaggy, the singer, stole
Yeah,
that
yeah,
from?
yeah. No, I didn't. I don't know who he stole it from now.
He stole that from Eddie Murphy's stand up, where he said when you get caught with your girl, he said he was telling in either Raw or Delirious, he was saying
Uh-huh.
when you get caught cheating with your girl, the number one thing is to say it wasn't me, babe. It wasn't me.
Man, nah, I didn't know that. But yeah,
It
I didn't
wasn't
know that. That
me.
was a big song for Shaggy, man.
Well, he got that from Eddie Murphy. It
That's
wasn't me.
crazy. Man,
But
wasn't me, man.
I got a clip here of the chief actually reading the letter via her attorney's name is Emery Anthony. I'm still not sure if this was the best advice, but let's listen to what this chief had to say. And the chief, by the way, is the chief's name is Nick Durzis, and the chief has always got some nice suits on. But here we go.
Good afternoon. Thanks to everyone for attending again today. I want to thank the members of our department and all of law enforcement who played a role in the investigation of this case. Last Wednesday, July 19th, we held a press conference and provided you with the facts of the Carlee Russell disappearance. We told you the investigation was ongoing, and we helped you determine where Carlee was during the 49 hours of her disappearance. Today I've talked to and received a statement from Mr. Emery Anthony, attorney for Carlee Russell. Mr. Anthony has scheduled a meeting for Carlee to meet with investigators early this afternoon, but then I received an email stating that a statement was being provided by him on her behalf. Mr. Anthony asked that I read the statement entirely, which I will do now. My client has given me permission to make the following statement on her behalf. There was no kidnapping on Thursday, July 13th, 2023. My client did not see a baby on the side of the road. My client did not leave the Hoover area when she was identified as a missing person. My client did not have any help in this incident, but this was a single act done by herself. My client was not with anyone or any hotel with anyone during the time she was missing. My client apologizes for her actions to this community, the volunteers who were searching for her, to the Hoover Police Department and other agencies as well, as to her friends and family. We ask for your prayers for Carlee as she addresses her issues and attempts to move forward, understanding that she made a mistake in this matter. Carlee, again, ask for your forgiveness and prayers. We have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Anthony to further discuss this case. We're currently in discussions with the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office in Bessemer about possible criminal charges related to this case, and we will announce those charges when and if they are filed.
There you go. She wants some forgiveness and prayers. We still don't know. I don't think the chief has ever been able to break this down yet, but we don't know where she was at for those 49 hours. And I know they want to know because they want to know if anybody else was involved, if anyone was helping her, if she had an accomplice. And we also don't know why the heck she did this in the first place. I know some people are speculating it had to do with her boyfriend, but they haven't said anything about that.
Yeah, I still don't know the why, but I can say that apology speech could help. At least she reached out to the community and reached out to the volunteers who tried to help. Reached out to it sound like a heartfelt apology. Based on somebody who messed up. So that could help her as well, but at the same time, have they did a mental evaluation on her? Is have you heard her speak since she's been found? Do she sound mentally competent, like everything is all right, or are they saying that it could be some issues?
I haven't heard her speak at all, but I remember one of the early reports said that there is no history of mental illness. So
Hmm.
now it sounds like they might be going in that direction. She was having some sort of temporary mental breakdown, but I believe she's going to get charged. Hopefully, it's just a misdemeanor. I don't know what the rules and the laws in the state of Alabama are on this, but most people who do this do get charged. Also, they want to calculate the cost of the search. That's where it really comes in, because they had helicopters out there looking for her. They had drones. They had law enforcement from other agencies. Man, I don't know what the dollar amount is going to be, but it sounds pretty hefty.
No, no doubt. You know what I mean? And I don't know if how much of that they can, put on her back. I don't, that's something that people need to start looking at in a whole. Like, when you do something and you have these agencies come out, they're starting to have a bill for your ass, Alex. You know what I mean? And sometimes, you would rather get the 6 months in jail, over this high ass bill they finna, put on you, attach it to your credit, all that if you can't pay it. So people starting to not understand the financial ramifications of some of the shit they out here doing.
Yeah, man, it's like that restitution now. You could do PPP fraud for a couple $1 million, but once you get caught, they're gonna bill you the entire amount, and you're gonna have to pay that. Not only go to prison, but when you get out, figure out a way to pay back all that money. So I don't know if it's all that worth it nowadays. But I remember when David Mack, the former LAPD officer, he robbed 700,000 from a bank. He got caught. He did his time. They never found the money, but for some reason, he never had to pay restitution for stealing 700,000 from the bank. So if he put that money up somewhere, he did his 12 years, and he might have been able to come home to almost $1 million. Not sure though if that's possible.
Right, right. No, I got you. You know what I mean? But I don't know what the criteria is why some people have to pay restitution, some people don't. I read a lot of cases, of course, like you say, how we do, read people paperwork, on their cases, and a lot of dudes that had bank robbers. I did notice that a lot of people only had $100 assessment fee. Everybody didn't have or only had a $2,000, restitution when they, got away with, 20, 30, or 200, so, I don't know what they do when they set that restitution. Maybe it's by judge or something like that. But yeah, I never got to the bottom of exactly how they assess restitution.
So you're saying in some instances you could rob a bank for $100,000 and your restitution is only like five.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know what they take into consideration. Maybe they saying we gonna get the rest about your ass in this penitentiary, on the back end. But yeah, but it's different. I don't know if it's something your attorneys negotiate or what. Um, or I don't know how much money if they retrieved any money. You know what I mean? Because sometimes they do retrieve money. When they raid your house and you got the money there, sometimes they do find some of the money. So I don't know how they go about it. But yeah, I've seen bank robbers with just $100 assessment fee, and I know they didn't get the money back. So I don't know how that worked.
Yeah, they're gonna try to tally this up. I know that that helicopter for 2 days, because they're saying 49 hours. That's 2 days of search. So that helicopter is probably, I think, 2,000 a day, maybe, and then all the manpower hours behind it, and all of the searching, and they're going to tally up something around at least a minimum 20,000, maybe higher. I don't
No,
know.
it's going to be a lot more than that, Alex. I'm only saying this from, I mean, just hours ago. I was in a situation, and emergency vehicles had to come out. Tow trucks had to be deployed, the big ones. And I was talking to one of the tow truck drivers, and he just said, let alone that tow truck was the one he was in was $750 an hour. They was out there with us about 10 hours. The other tow truck that had to come, he was only there for about 4 hours, but that tow truck was $1,800 an hour. These are tow trucks. So
Damn.
imagine jet fuel in a helicopter. You know what I mean? So I'm almost sure it's going to be higher than that. A lot higher than that. So I believe that this bill is going to be 1.1 million at the end. I believe it's going to be $1 million
Damn.
bill. Yeah, I'm gonna go on record to say I think it's going to be the one that I'm talking about, the Carlee Russell bill.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna put it at 1.1 million.
Okay, I'm gonna put it under 100,000, only because it's Alabama, and the cost of living in Alabama, like that same truck you talking about, that's $1,800 an hour here in California. That's California prices. I'm gonna say Alabama price is like half that or less than half that. So I'm gonna go with less than 100,000, but I'm sure whatever the amount is, even if it's like 75,000, they're gonna bill her. And I don't know if she's in a position to pay that type of money. But of course, they put you on them payment plans, right?
I mean, they can, but at the same time, most of the time, life, cost of living is high enough right now. You know what I mean? You can't hit me with a $75,000 bill right now, and I'm gonna be happy with it. You know what I mean? So whether I could pay it or not, I'm not gonna be happy with it. You know what I mean? So, and then if you don't pay it, like I say, that gets attached to your credit and things of this nature. So it snowballs. It's the snowball effect. You know what I mean? So, like I say, if she have any issues, I hope she get help. If she don't, hey man, I've seen people do crazier things, man. So hey, what can I say?
Well, she always got the option to file that bankruptcy if they hit her with that $1 million debt, and she knows she's not gonna pay it. So we'll see that. But also, man, last week we talked about YNW Melly quite often on this podcast, and he was found. Well, he wasn't found anything. They couldn't agree.
They
The
couldn't
jury
agree. Yeah, yeah,
the,
yeah.
the jury couldn't agree on murder charges, so he got a hung jury or mistrial. It's all the same thing. And I didn't get to really tap in with the trial during the 19 days, but it seemed like from the beginning, a lot of people were saying, "Hey, this case seems a little weak. This seems kind of weak." But with these double murders, man, how often does someone actually beat a double murder? But this guy, I'm sure they're gonna retry him, man. What was your first reaction when you heard about I was about to say not guilty, but the hung jury?
To be honest with you, I was shocked. I didn't, analyze the trial or nothing like that. I didn't sit up and watch all the details, but from the details I did see from the police when they were testifying about, which direction the bullets came from and things of this nature, when his boy got up there and said he changed clothes, I kind of thought the nail was in the coffin, apparently the jury sit there and actually listen to every single word, and they couldn't beyond a reasonable doubt say that it was him. So they did the right thing. If it was me, if you're not sure, don't just you know take a dude life, or potentially get him a death sentence if you're not sure. So I know they're gonna retry, no doubt. You know what I mean? If the case was mistrial on Friday, Monday they refiled him. You know what I mean? So he gonna have to run it back. They gonna do different things in the trial. That's what I hate about the retrial. They get to take a different angle now, and they see what the defense angle is and things of this nature, man, and they try to come with a better story or better analysis of it to convict you that second time or sometime at work.
Yeah, man, because the old saying is that the prosecution only got to be lucky once. The defense has to be
Gotta be
lucky
lucky
every
twice,
single time.
every
No,
time,
every
man. Because
time.
they could do it 3 times. They can retry you 3 times.
Yeah,
After that third time, man, they can't do it after a third time. But like you say, man, that's hard to do 3 times, man.
yeah. I don't know what Alabama rules are, because I read a old case where they tried this dude 4 times. But here in
Damn.
Cali, actually, I think here in Cali they can if they want. But I actually had a case where a dude went on trial 3 times for murder here in LA. It was my boy Jonte Etris, Ettress. Y'all could look up this brother's case. He went on trial for murder 3 times here in LA. Got a hung
Mm,
jury all 3 times.
damn.
And the judge said after the third trial, he said, "I'm about to let this brother go."
Yeah.
So, and the prosecution was mad. They really wanted to get him. And I'm sure the prosecution here in Florida is feeling the same way about YNW Melly. But the law in Florida, they got 90 days to retry him. So they're going to file charges. And then, you got the Bortland trial that's supposed to be coming up later. So is that going to overlap with Bortland's trial? And how is that going to play out?
Yeah, that is going to be something else because I know they maybe had a strategy, to get Melly out the way first and then Portland come with his. But hey, man, that's going to be wild, man. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him, man. But hey, man, hey, if they fighting their case, man, what can I say,
Yeah, I got a quick clip from Channel 6 in Florida. Here we go.
Today, the judge in the YNW Melly double murder case declared a mistrial after the jury was unable to reach a unanimous decision. The rapper was accused of killing two of his childhood friends back in 2018. The jurors listened to arguments for weeks and spent 2 days deliberating. NBC6 reporter Nico Clemens is live outside the courthouse in Fort Lauderdale to break it all down for us. Nico?
Well, Laura, many people are asking online tonight what a mistrial means. What does this all mean? And so for this specific trial right here, again, the jury could not agree on a verdict, so we'll likely get a new trial and a new jury. But this trial right here, it lasted for more than a month. And tonight, we know the mother of at least one of the victims is expressing how she feels.
What I'm going to do is just declare this trial.
A mistrial in the YNW Melly murder case.
Our system doesn't work without getting people from the community to come in here and listen to the facts of the case and make decisions.
Here he is moments after the judge sent the jury home.
And I got murder on my mind.
The rapper, whose real name is Jamel Dimmons, is accused of shooting and killing Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams in 2018. Dimmons and his co-defendant, Cortland Henry, along with the two victims, made up the rap collective YNW. A prosecutor said Dimmons and Henry claimed they were victims of a drive-by shooting, but they argued that Dimmons was the shooter and killed his friends from the back seat. Prosecutors say cell phone evidence proves Dimmons was in the car during the murders. The defense insists he was home sleeping at the time.
This case is sad. This is serious.
Leandra Phillips, the mother of one of the victims, Christopher Thomas, wrote on her Facebook after the mistrial was declared, "My son is dead for no reason."
You gave us some time and you put your best effort to see if you can bring the case to a resolution. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to happen. But I want to thank you again for your time and consideration of the case.
So the defense and the state, they'll come back next Friday and they'll discuss how they'll move forward with this case.
Okay, so it looks like sometime later this week, maybe possibly next week, depending on how busy they are, they're going to decide on a date within the 90 days to retry the case. But hey, man, would you go on trial for murder with that diamond grill in your mouth? I just don't think that's a good look if you're trying to win over the jury.
Well, if it's not permanent, no, he should have took that shit out, but at the same time, you got to understand that these young dudes with a young mind that don't understand, some of the things it take, man, to win over a jury. You know what I mean? These dudes, like that smile at the end. You wasn't supposed to give a smile, homie. You was supposed to give like a relief from, me put through this situation and I didn't do it. You smiling like you beat something, or you know what I mean? And they just don't get that. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been in plenty of courtrooms, Alex. You know what I mean? You got to have a courtroom etiquette, especially if you're trying to claim that you're innocent. Because let me be honest with you, and it's just from my perspective and my perspective only. If I was innocent, why would I be smiling that I beat or I got a mistrial? I would be relieved. You feel me? Happy that, I'm that they believe that I didn't kill my friends. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't be a smile. No, nowhere in me. You know what I mean? It'll be a sigh of relief based on they accusing me of something, I didn't do. And that's my perspective, and that's what some of these dudes don't get. That's what, but you are talking to a vet as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is his first rodeo, so but he's got good lawyers around him to give advice. These lawyers been on trial before, and when OJ was found not guilty of double murder, he turned to the jury and he kind of mouthed like, "Thank you." He like in a very humble way.
Right, right, right,
And
right,
it
right.
was over. At that point, it was over. He could have just
No,
jumped for
no doubt,
joy, you know.
no doubt. But at the same time, it's a etiquette that come with it. Based on, and not to mention based on the cameras are rolling. He know that they're in court. He know this is a highly publicized trial. But he don't get it as a young dude. But some of that shit, like you say, can come back to because they also been making memes about his facial expressions and shit. While he's been in the courtroom. You know what I mean? So. It shouldn't be a smile on your face, bro. You fighting for your life. You know what I mean? So it's nothing to smile about in this situation. Relieved, yes. Happy, yes. But me personally, in this situation, I wouldn't have been happy just based on because I didn't win nothing. You know what I mean? I know they come to finna double back on me. You know what I mean? I know they finna come with one more evidence more than they had last time. It ain't nothing to smile about. I'm not at home. You know what I mean? So I felt his lawyers would have took that into consideration and try to groom him, but maybe they can't control him, or maybe they don't even care really.
Yeah, he seemed a little uncontrollable, but to a certain degree, a hung jury, a mistrial is I would call it a small victory. That
Small,
small victory that definitely it benefits the defense, but then at the same time, the prosecution already knows your entire defense strategy
right?
because you already laid it all out. So that benefits the prosecution on the second go around.
No doubt.
But was the case weak? Was it weak? See, I couldn't find out. I wonder if anyone knows this. What was the vote in terms of the jury? Because that some of the jurors actually wanted to vote guilty. So we don't know what the split was. We don't know if it was 6-6. We don't know if it was unless it's been. I couldn't find it. But let's say the split was 7 not guilty, 5 guilty. Then that definitely weighs in favor of the defense. But we don't know if the split was 3 not guilty and 9 guilty. Then the prosecution knows we gonna get them on the next one.
No doubt. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell you why you could throw that out the window because it's gonna be a whole new set of juries on the next go round. You know what I mean? So you might not get a jury. You might not get somebody on that jury that believe you like this last jury did. You know what I mean? So that's what it's not to smile about. You got to be worried about the next jurors that your lawyer is going in there picking. You know what I mean? And hopefully they are listening to the case and understanding it as this last jury. So that's what I'm saying. It's a very small victory. You know what I mean? But at the same time, man, you got to run it back. You got to do it again. Now, the like you say, the momentum is in the prosecutor's hand because he know the defense strategies that you're gonna use. So.
All right, here's what the lawyers had to say right after
just had the mistrial called,
hung
and
jury.
I need to have both of your reactions.
Obviously, we want to thank the jury for their great efforts that they've extended over this period of time. But we are somewhat disappointed that Melly is not walking out the door with us. That's all I can say for right now.
And David, do you have anything you want to say further?
I don't really have much to add except to say that the jury did pay attention. We asked them to do a lot, and they hung in there and gave it its best effort, their best effort, and it's the most we could ask of them. So.
And what are your next steps as far as Melly is concerned? Are there going to be any efforts to try to get him out on bond?
We're not at liberty to discuss that at this point.
What are you at liberty to discuss? Can you tell us anything about next steps?
No.
Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate your coming.
The attorney said, nope, we don't really want to talk about it right now. But of course, you would want to get bail for your client after you got a hung jury. But because it's a double murder, that's pretty much slim to none getting a bail. And it's absolutely going to go again. So, hey, we're going to hear another. I believe the trial was 19 actual days. So we got to go through the whole thing, man, all over again, FG. But that's good for the people that are creating content on this. That's good for the Law and Crime Network because this brought in a lot of ratings. I'm using the old school word ratings. Now it's clicks and views, right?
Right.
But I believe this is the biggest trial in the country right now, and they're going to do it twice.
Yeah, they're going to do it twice, man, and they got to both fight a little harder. You know, somebody in the comments said it was the vote was 10-2. I don't know how they know, or I don't know if that's true. But if it was true, that's not a large margin to be celebrating, because two different jurors can make that go another way easy. But like I say, the guy fighting this case, man, he innocent till proven guilty. I'm not gonna sit here and say that he's guilty, because I don't know at all. So hey, man, maybe the system worked for him. Maybe 10 people was convinced and 2 people said that no, this is some BS. So like I say, man, he got to go fight it again. He got to fight a little harder this time, but the prosecution's finna double down on him.
Yeah, 10 guilty, 2 not guilty is not really a good sign for the defense. And I'm sure the prosecution is like, all right, where can we tighten up our case? How did we lose 2 jurors?
Right.
That's easier to do, to tighten up your case for 2 jurors. Now, if it was more of a more even split, like 6-6, the prosecution pretty much is going to be like, damn, we do have a weak case. But
Right.
10-2 is not a weak case. 10-2 from the prosecution's perspective. But remember, all you need is one. All you need is one juror to say not guilty, and we'll see what happens again on the next go around, man. I'm gonna try to watch more of the trial next time. Hopefully, I'm not as busy. I had a busy July. But I want to tap in with the trial next time, and maybe do some updates and some analysis day by day, man. Any last thoughts on the YNW Melly?
Nah, man, we just gonna be there to watch him running back. Me, I'm really be checking out his demeanor. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, I'm big on demeanor in the courtroom. I really don't play no games with them people. When you're fighting for your life. So I'm looking at the demeanor aspect of it to see and show people, from my perspective, what I feel, certain things shouldn't be done or should be done, just on the demeanor aspect of, your composure, you know what I mean? And things of that nature, because it is an etiquette, Alex. His lawyers got to do the rest of the fight. They got another uphill battle. He got to have his bread right, because he do have to reap. It's like a whole new trial. So you have to pay your lawyers again, So if they charge you $200,000, you got to pay another $200,000. You know what I mean? It's everything is again. I've had charges refiled on me. Like I say, when I made that reference to, beat the case on or get the case dismissed on Friday. Come Monday, they refiled, and I've been through that. He definitely has to get up there, man, and even show the jurors, the jury that, he got his body language, all that shit helps, Alex. So, we're going to see how much they tighten it up on this next
one. I'm hearing here that YNW Melly wasn't able to take out his grill, and that he wanted to. So I guess, but they're permanent. They're tied into your gums. How does that work? I don't know nothing about these grills.
Yeah, no, they got different ones that, they permanently in there. And some of these dudes spend a whole lot of money, because that's the thing, down south in Florida and some of the Midwest, that they do the grill thing, and some of them are, like you say, you could take them in and out, but a lot of them dudes really go down there. I know dudes had their teeth actually pulled, Alex, to put, gold ones in there, ones with diamonds, you know what I mean? These dudes was that serious about their grills down there that, I've seen them pull teeth to put, gold stuff in their mouth or silver, so yeah, maybe he couldn't take it out. I kind of believe that if he could have, be honest with you, I believe that if he could have, the jail would have made him take him out. You know what I mean? So I should have thought about that a little earlier, because you got any kind of thing like that when you get to jail, they make you take all that out if it comes out.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever went to Miami and Florida. All the brothers had grills, and this was like 20 something years ago. And all the brothers in Miami had grills in their mouth. I was like, wow, this is, and there was a time in LA, I don't think nobody had a grill in their mouth.
Right. That wasn't our thing. Yeah.
It's slowly picking up in LA. Every once in a while, you see somebody with one of them. But down south, man, they've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm hearing here that we don't really know what the jury split was.
Okay.
They didn't publicly announce it. So it's just coming from people that were tied into the trial, like family members. So we don't know. We got someone saying 9-3. Someone here is saying that it was 6-6. So no one really knows what it was.
Right.
Hopefully we'll find out in the near future. So we'll know. That isn't, to me, is an indication of how strong or how weak
How
the
strong
case
or how
is.
weak? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to this. There was an indictment that just came out here in Los Angeles locally by the FBI, man, of another gang. It seems like every month, every few weeks, it's a new gang getting indicted here in Los Angeles. But this time it was in El Monte. It was in El Monte, and about a year ago, two police officers got shot by one guy that was from this gang, and then the guy ended up committing suicide. Officers Joseph Santana and Michael Paredes responded to a situation at a motel, the Siesta Inn, in June 14th, 2021, where a guy named Justin Flores was in there, and Justin ended up getting into a shootout. He killed both cops. Then he turned the gun on himself, committed suicide, and now the gang is being indicted because of that. Literally, because of what this one guy did a year ago. The whole gang, well, not the entire gang, several guys of the gang are getting indicted. And in the indictment, one of the things that was cited was that because his homies put "rest in peace" on the wall, that meant that they were celebrating that he killed that he killed two cops. And I call that bogus. I don't think that's what's really going through the mind of a lot of dudes. I just think that no matter what you do, your homies are still going to remember you and love you and just say "rest in peace." But the feds decided to indict this gang because of that. FG, what's going on with the FBI? Why don't they understand that? And maybe you don't know, maybe you disagree with this, but why don't they understand that what this one guy did, even though he's tied into the hood, that's what that one guy did?
No doubt, but that's how they gonna make it. You know what I mean? But they the homie shouldn't be, penalized for, what the one homie did. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like you say, if they rolling through that hood and they saying, disrespectful cop, slurred, kill cops or things of that nature in their neighborhood on the walls and stuff like that, that little stuff like that, just sparks a ire in them, man, that makes them want to come for all of them, but at the same time, man, when he knocked down two cops, man, they was sick about that. You know what I mean? So naturally they was gonna come back, investigate the gang, try to find something on him, man, because they couldn't get nothing out of him. They couldn't arrest him. They couldn't give him a life sentence. They couldn't do nothing. In actuality, it's almost the homies looking at it like he won, like the homie won, and he went out on his terms, you know what I mean? So they didn't like that. Maybe if they would have arrested him or something like that or killed him themselves, it probably wouldn't have been a problem, but since they felt like they took a L, they was going to double back and get the homies.
Yeah, and there's a lot of homies that they don't want that type of heat in the neighborhood. They don't condone like let's go kill a cop today, everybody, because they got their own little side hustles going on. They got their own little operations going on, and the last thing you want is to kill a cop because it comes with that. But the way the FBI is making it sound is like they was all with it. They all supported it. They was all down with it because this one dude that was probably tweaking in that motel, who knows how much methamphetamine he had in his system, decided to go on one that day.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Alex, after he did it, that don't mean the homies wasn't with it. That don't mean, the homies was like, yeah, that's what's up. That's how we rolling. That's what we do over here. You never know they how they felt afterwards, as well. Just to be honest with you, back when you coming up in the streets, it is the gang against the police. You know what I mean? So when somebody shot a cop, you didn't say poor cop because, a lot of these cops was dirty anyway. Planting drugs on people, in the inner city, in the hoods and things of this nature. A lot of people, it's not the same police in the suburbs. You know what I mean? These cops out here, man, are just dangerous. You know what I mean? So, we don't know what the hood demeanor is on that aspect. Now, don't get me wrong. You're 100% right on. Sometimes, what one homie do, it reflects on the hood, man, and it mess up a lot of things that you got going in the hood. You know, say if you got a weed spot, or say if you doing this or that, all them little hustles you was just talking about come to an end, because now your neighborhood is getting smothered with cops. You got to think, after dude killed that cops, every cop on that force was rolling through that neighborhood looking for somebody to get on their helmet. You know what I mean? So it shut down any operation that they probably had, you know, going on in the neighborhood, you know. So it definitely, I'm sure, put a burden on the hood, but at the same time, man, you know, dude felt like it was time for, yeah, he got into that shootout, he handled his business and said, look, I'm out of here, I ain't even finna go do a life sentence.
Well, I got a clip here that's going to explain exactly all the stuff that the feds was able to shut down from this hood in El Monte. Take a listen.
It's called Operation Silent Cadence, and this is a Fox 11 News exclusive. Take a look. We're here in El Monte at the booking center for the documented gang members that were rounded up early this morning in a coordinated and well-synchronized raid.
This is the FBI. Come to the front door, open it, come out with your hands up, nothing in your hand.
Hitting over a dozen locations simultaneously starting at 6 o'clock this morning. The FBI, the ATF, Los Angeles County Sheriffs, and the El Monte Police Department all working together, targeting a San Gabriel Valley gang that sources say had been terrorizing cities like El Monte. The gang members rounded up, all connected to one particular gang member, the suspect accused of murdering two El Monte police officers, Michael Paredes and Joseph Santana, last year in June. He was killed in a shootout with police after killing the two officers who were responding to a call of domestic violence. According to police, that suspect was a gang member belonging to the same gang that these gang members rounded up today also belong to. They're accused of many crimes, and they're all going to be charged federally as opposed to be charged locally. Bringing it back here live, this is a story we're going to be following on Fox 11 and Good Day LA with exclusive video you'll only see here this morning. We're reporting live in El Monte. I'm Gigi Graciette. We'll send it back to you.
So tell me this, FG, how many of these dudes now that was selling weed, selling meth, selling whatever they was selling, they sitting in the federal holding tank there, and all of them is an MDC, and they're saying, damn, why'd the homie have to kill two cops last year? Because now they done shut down the whole entire hood.
Yeah, but man, that's that. Let me be honest with you, Alex. You know, I'm not feeling that at all. But I also know one thing about it, man. You know, the police, the feds, you know, and the media, you know, overhype things, overrate things. You know what I mean? They even went and got the homegirls in them. You know what I mean? You know, so now what they could have on these dudes is like maybe text messages where they gloating, or text messages saying, you know, F the police, or, you know, they could have some derogatory, you know, comments that these people made, you know, but that's not a crime. You know what I mean? It's freedom of speech, you know. So you're going to go after them on some petty drugs because y'all done say y'all found, you know, 100 pounds of meth and 37 guns. You know what I mean? You know, I didn't even hear that you say you found no guns or you found no drugs. Not saying you didn't, or the drugs that you found probably was a minimal amount. Now, with that being said, now you're going to charge them federally because a minimal amount can get you a decent amount of time. Man, Alex, I'm waiting to see the charges, what they charging these people with, man. It sound like it's a bogus attempt to just reclaim fame or reclaim, like they doing something about their buddies getting killed. You know, like we got those guys that was involved. No, the guy that involved was dead. You know what I mean? So you ain't gonna never get him. You know, you coming at the homies on some petty drug crimes and things of that nature because you didn't name out attempted murder. You already know if it's going federally, y'all already know what you're gonna charge them with. So you didn't say, you know, charges could be possible as murder, attempted murder, you know, drug ring leading back to, you know, something like that. Man, these dudes probably go in there and give 3, 4, 5 years, man, and you know, but they making it seem like they really took some high powered, you know, gang members off the street when they probably can't even give them a decent, you know, decent charges, you know?
Yeah, that's how most of these gang indictments read. You go to the press conference and they say this gang has been known for terrorizing the community for the last 30 years. They've been involved in multiple murders. But when you read the indictment, it's like 10 grams of methamphetamine, 20 grams of cocaine, a couple of pistols.
Right, right, right.
The charges are far lesser than the description during the press conference. So, but nevertheless, some of these guys might end up going to prison. You say maybe 3 or 5 years, depending on the quantity. But nevertheless, they disrupting all these people's lives for the next at least 5 years when everyone was doing their thing. Yeah, it's unfortunate that this one homie killed a couple of cops, but I don't think these guys really were have anything to do with that. If they did, they would have arrested them last year when the cop got killed.
No, no doubt. You got a great point right there, and you absolutely right on how they went on to start do their thing, whatever they was doing, and the heat came in on them. Unfortunately, Alex, that's part of being a gang member. You know what I mean? You can't predict nothing. You know what I mean? So sometimes you out with a buddy and y'all get into a bar fight, and one of your buddies pull out a gun and shoot somebody. Now a simple bar fight, which we was laughing and smiling about while we was doing it. Whether we was winning or losing, you know what I mean? Now it got serious. Now we can all be arrested for murder or attempted murder, things of this nature. When, bro, we was just having a fight. Why'd you pull out a gun? But it's always could be one homie that disrupts a whole lot of things. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you know what I mean? This is gang shit. You know what I mean? And when you sign up to be in a gang, when you become a gang member, when you take that oath to be loyal to the gang or to the set, you got to take this on the chin. You know what I mean? Whether it was due for it or not, you got to go take them years on the chin and chalk it up to because this is the part of something that you didn't ever step away from it, or you didn't leave and go get a job, or you didn't leave to go raise your family. You was still being a participant in this gang, and this happens in the gang life.
Yeah, for sure. It's a part of the life of the streets that you embrace. But at the same time, though, I want to just note that sometimes the police are playing outside their boundaries and exaggerating and boasting and bragging and making things seem bigger than what they really are. So it's kind of like an unlevel playing field where the cops have all the resources. They have the media tied into them. They can feed the media anything they want to say. And then you got the gang over here that just really has no chance to even rebut what's going on. How many of these guys from El Monte you think will go on the internet and say, look, y'all, the way the police said it ain't really like that.
Right,
We're never
right.
going to hear their side of the story.
Right, right.
One side of the story wins every single time during these indictments.
Every single time, and that's been going on, forever, not just in criminal activity, in politics and a whole lot of other realms of life, the way they spend the media or the way the media portrayed it, or the way you portrayed to the public, it's hard to come back and fix that. That's why I don't put jackets on people, you know what I mean? And I don't falsely accuse people, you know what I mean? Because I know bad news travel fast, and it's hard to reel it back in, to say, oh, you know what, I made a mistake. 100 people heard the bad news, only 30 heard that it was a mistake. So, that's what kind of situation they up against, man. I'm gonna just go on record and say I don't believe the criminal activity that they saying they got them on. I don't believe is I think they hyping it up.
Oh yeah, they always hyping it up, and I hope everybody heard that what FG just said. He don't make false accusations on nobody. Did y'all hear
No
that?
doubt.
He don't make false accusations on no one. And the name of that neighborhood was Quiet Village out there in El Monte. And the last story here is this ring that Tupac had made, custom made ring, a gold ring shaped as a crown with rubies on the tip. It sold at an auction with a whole bunch of other hip hop memorabilia from a whole bunch of different other rap groups because they're celebrating the 50 years of hip hop. But this particular ring brought in the most amount of money at just a little over $1 million, man. It's and it also has an engraving on it that says Pac to Dada,
Damn.
which is short for Kadada
Dada's,
Jones.
yeah.
And
Oh,
apparently
wow.
he was engaged to Kadada Jones. That's Quincy Jones's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And and the ring was expected to bring in 200 to 300,000, and it brought in over a cool $1 million.
Damn, you know what I mean? That's a nice ring for one. For two, who had the ring, Alex? How did who owned the ring at this up to this point? You know, before somebody bought it for $1 million.
The ring was in the custody of a godmother that belonged, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, Tupac's godmother. I got
Mm-hmm.
her name here. Her name was let me get her name. It's listed over here. Well, Sotheby's auction got the ring from his godmother apparently, and
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of information about where this ring has been for the last 27 years. But her name is Yasmin Fula,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yaasmyn Fula, Fula, and that name Fula is very familiar because he had a relative with that last name that got killed like a month after he got killed in New Jersey,
Oh
if
damn.
I remember that
Wow.
correctly. So, and they have information of him wearing this ring. Actually, his last public appearance, he was wearing this ring shortly before he was killed in September of 1996. So it seems like the ring is legit. They got photos of him and video of him with the ring on, and it is the most expensive piece of hip hop art ever sold.
Oh wow, man, that's what's up. Hey, but let me ask you this: do you know if the proceeds go back to the godmom, or do it go to the auction house, or was the proceeds going to benefit anything, or is basically all the godmom's profit?
Yeah, she's gonna get the money, but Sotheby's gets a percentage of the
Get a
auction.
percentage? Yeah,
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 because they're selling it on their large platform, and we're gonna find out where she's at and what she's doing. And I'm sure everybody's gonna want to interview her real soon to find
yeah.
out about this ring. But
Did
yeah,
they
man,
did
go
they say
ahead.
who bought it? Did they say who bought the ring?
No, I didn't get the name of the person who bought it. Let me see here if they got it on here. Um, they did list the guy's name, but I didn't even. I was just so
Oh, okay,
fascinated by
yeah.
the ring itself. I didn't.
Nah, no doubt.
And I'm sure it's going to get resold in a couple of years for even more, for
Even
more
more,
money.
yeah.
But yeah, man, some Tupac history. And then what's funny is the article, one of the articles I read that talked about the ring, ended up talking about Keefe D getting his house raided. And we know some more information about that raid. They end up taking all of the information about his book, drawings, handwritings, and photographs that are linked to the publishing of that book, which was a Compton Street Legend. So
Well, I also read they took some bullet casings as well. They want to see if they, match the bullet casings that they found in Pac. I don't believe somebody would have some bullet casings from 30 years ago still, that would match, but they did say they took that and they gonna analyze them. But they probably gonna analyze everything they can over there, man. They're really trying to get this dude now, and they could be successful, man. Because they own it, and once they get on it like this, it's hard to get them off.
man, Keefe D would have to be an idiot if he had a box of bullets that go back to 1996 that matched the gun that killed Pac. He'd have to be an idiot to have those bullets still.
Right, but at the same time, we would say, that he had to be an idiot to, talk about it as much as he did, but he did, and he may not need a box of bullets, he may not need a whole lot of evidence, just the stuff that come out your mouth, could be, we always say it can and will be used against you in the court of law, and and that could happen to him. So, I got my eye close on that. You know what I mean? Everybody should, just based on, because we always talk about, the stuff that come out of people's mouth, and he could be first of many, if they, go and use his words, he could be first of many in this YouTube world to get banked upside the head for statements he made during interviews and stuff like that.
Let me ask you this, because a lot of people say you can't snitch on a dead guy. He gave a statement. He confessed to the murders. And at the time of that confession, two of the people in the car were deceased. Orlando Anderson had already been deceased, and so was a guy named Dre. But Terrence Brown, the driver, was still alive when Keefe D made that confession. But let's just say everybody's dead. Is that still snitching? Can you snitch on a dead person? That's the question.
Well, the thing about it is like this, I look at it in two different ways, Alex. If you was a part of the crime, hell yeah, you could snitch on the dead person, but you could also still be convicted of it because you was part of the crime. Now, say if he wasn't part of the crime and he said his nephew came home and said he did it. You know what I mean? So they want to jam him up and bring him in and book him on not coming forth with the evidence and of what his nephew told him, and he get up there on the stand and be like, my cousin say he did it, my nephew say he did it, that's snitching on a dead person. Hey, I mean, everybody did, a lot of people gonna frown upon that, but he can't go to jail for it. You feel me? In this situation, you not snitching on nobody but yourself, because you're the only person that's still around in the crime. So you're not snitching on your nephew, you're snitching on yourself. You know what I mean? So in that situation, Alex, you just flat out telling on yourself. You know what I mean? And I don't care what kind of immunity you had with who, bro, this should have never been spoke of, you know what I mean? And maybe you could have slipped through the cracks, but you want to keep talking about it and keep talking about it and keep talking about it. Here go a situation, they like, okay, man, you finna stop talking about this shit. You know what I mean? So I'm watching this closely because this could, like I say, be example of what, you got a lot of YouTubers out there that's real gangsters, you know what I mean? So dudes is telling stories, hopefully we don't see more storytellers, getting banked for their stories they telling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that even though Orlando Anderson was deceased, he implicated other people in that whole homicide that were not deceased. One being Terrence Brown. Terrence Brown was the driver. He wasn't deceased when Keefe D confessed to the homicide when he got his proffer. And also, I don't think Von Zip was deceased yet, and he said Von Zip gave him the gun to go kill Pac. Y'all can fact check me on this. Pull up the year that he confessed to Greg Kading, and then look at the years that Terrence Brown died and that Von Zip died. So for those that keep saying, well, everybody was dead when he snitched, so he didn't snitch on anyone. Well, not everybody was dead. I know for a fact Terrence Brown was still alive. I'm not sure if Von Zip was still alive, but yeah, he implicated Puff Daddy.
Yeah, definitely.
Puff Daddy ain't dead, y'all.
Right. And they still talking about that, So, I believe a lot of stuff gonna come out, and they probably have more evidence than we actually think. They never show the hand, Alex. You know what I mean? So, if something were to occur where they was to arrest somebody for it, or charge somebody with this, I believe we're gonna get some more evidence that's gonna come out that we didn't never know.
Hey, can you imagine if this goes all the way back to Diddy, to Puff Daddy, or as my mom
that'd
calls
be wild right there. Yeah, that'd be wild.
My mom calls him Puff Diddy.
Puff Diddy.
Yeah, my mom said, "You heard what happened to Puff Diddy?" I was like, "Who the hell's Puff Diddy, Mom?"
Right.
Can you imagine if it comes all the way back to him? Because apparently he gave Von Zip the money. Von Zip gives Keefe D the gun, and then Keefe D, gets his soldiers and they mount up. So Puff Daddy is at the top of this whole conspiracy.
Well, if he is, it's gonna come out right now. You know what I mean? Because like you say, dudes ain't just going to taking that shit on the chin like they used to. You know what I mean? So therefore, man, like I say, when charges get, pushed down the pipe, the difference between Puff and Keefe D, though, Puff gonna have a team of lawyers in there on your ass. You know what I mean? Some great ones. You know what I mean? I don't know Keefe D finance situation, if they were to come arrest him, but we could be looking at the wrong person. Maybe they got somebody else in mind, but, just from reading, the news and stuff like that, they do look like they looking at him, though.
Yeah, man, this is a mess. I don't know how much evidence they have, how they can even prove Diddy was involved, because it's just this dude's word. It's just Keefe D's word. They don't have any other evidence. So I think It's been 27 years, but who knows? Did Las Vegas finally wake up and decide to investigate this homicide? And they got all the goods. We'll soon find out, man. But where can the people tap in with you, FG?
Man, come over there to FG Unleashed, man, on YouTube. Check me out. Come over there on Instagram, on both channels. Make sure y'all subscribe, and hit those like buttons, man. F General 1 on Instagram, FG Unleashed on YouTube.
And I need everybody to hit me up at Alex Alonso 101. I'm on Instagram and Twitter mostly. And you could also send me an email. Just go to streetgangs.com and click the contact link there, and all my contact is there. And follow us on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeart, Google. And don't forget, if you're on Apple Podcasts, you could leave us a rating and review. You can just go in there and leave us a comment, question, and we'll eventually tap in with it. And thanks for listening to another fire episode of Streets and Scholars.